Welcome to episode 2 of The Joe Show, hosted by me, Joe Balogh. Yes, that Joe Balogh. Hall of Fame coach with a dozen 20-win seasons, 21 league championships, and just all-around good guy. And unlike my buddy David Sheldon over at Crawford, who's on that hamster wheel trying to catch me in wins, I also went to a Final Four. But let's not make this all about me. Well, actually, let's do, because I'm Joe Balogh, and this is my show. Every week, we'll tip off the show with all the highlights you need to see from area round ball action, as I'll now toss it over to Brian Skowronski with a 9-pack of holiday games. Take it away, Brian.
All right, thank you, Coach Balogh. I think we do still call him Coach, even though he's retired. When you win almost 600 games, I think that's kind of your moniker forever. Anyways, I am Brian Skowronski, and welcome into episode 2 of The Joe Show. I want to be one of the last to wish you a Happy New Year. Hope you had a fantastic Christmas holiday extravaganza with friends and family. I certainly know that I did, and there were a lot of great games that we had coverage for right here on the OH Report. So without further ado, let's go ahead and throw it in the reverse cycle and show you all the games we had coverage for right now in the Rewind. Tip things off with Clear Fork at Shelby. This was a big one in the MOAC, and Trinity Baker starting off the night with an ankle-breaking move. She got to the hoop and one opportunity. Annika Labaki, though, at the other end, displaying some deep range as she knocks down the three-pointer there. But Demi Hip and the Whippets would respond on the other end all night long in this game. Lily Wortman and company, they would make a strong second-half push. They would trim down the deficit, but the Lady Whippets stood their ground and closed things out as time expired, earning a solid 48-46 MOAC victory. They are now tied for the top spot in the league alongside River Valley. Shelby playing some great basketball as we're now into 2023. Move on now to some OCC action. Mansfield Senior versus New Philly. Here's Lasha Robinson getting the scoring started for the Quakers. Kaya Wentz, though, gets the inbounds pass on the other end, and she's going to leave it hanging. TY led 12-7 after one, 26-17. They had a cushion at the break. Second half, and it's the freshman, Kiana Myers, taking the game over. We're going to show you 4 of her career-high 30 points as the Lady Tigers remain in the thick of the OCC race heading into this new year. Move on to the Wayne Roller Classic, and we're going to show you Willard versus East Knox to start and tip things off with Caitlin Weaver threading the needle to Reese Bedingfield of Willard. She's got the bucket. Lady Dogs would not go away, though. Natalie Smith with the offensive board, and she would get the score for EK, who led 26-24 at the break. Second half, though, Sai Savansak weaves through traffic and finds herself open in the corner. Buckets there. She had 15. Lady Flashes start to pull away as Bedingfield closes the door for Willard with the putback bucket. They would win this thing 49-60. Strasburg versus Fredericktown. Lady Freddy's no answer for Riley Thomas on this day as she would get to the rim and would score. Fredericktown would stay in this with some perimeter shooting. Callie Carpenter hitting one from long range there. She had 3 triples in the contest. It was a 4-point difference at the break, but the Tigers would control the second half. Sophia Seacrest hits the 3 there, and then Thomas going to put the game away as Strasburg would go on to not only win this game, but they would beat Mansfield Senior on Saturday for a perfect 2-0 sweep at the Wayne Roller. More action from the tournament. Ontario starting off strong in a tightly contested first quarter against South Central. Lady Warriors would lead at 14-13. Carly McAvoy, though, would earn SC some much-needed points, trailing 30-15 with that bucket before the half. Now here's Sexton Accounts, who would kick it outside to Howard for a deep 2-point bucket. That would find its way home. Grace Lamoureux gonna bank in another much-needed 3-pointer as the Trojans would try to make things interesting. They put together a run, but Nagel and the Lady Warriors, they would hold on and power past South Central 49-39 as we move on now to Plymouth at Mansfield Christian. The last game on Friday night, Branham and the Lady Red would come out strong. Pull of 3 starts the contest. Branham now out to Detillion, who converts to put Plymouth on top 9-0 early. Davis then forcing the steal for MC. She would drop in a layup assisted by Little to start their surge. Now Noelle Bear with the impressive pass finds Abby Little, who finishes the tough shot inside of the painted area. Lady Flames responded to that early adversity, and they would walk away with a 41-29 victory over Plymouth on their home surface. Boys action now. Lexington at Mount Vernon. Baden Forup, strong move up and under. He was a tone setter in this one in the first quarter to help build Lexington a lead. Later on, here's the freshman phenom Braden Fogel going coast to coast around the back and the layup in the second. He was huge on this night. Now here's Hudson Roller. You want to talk about a flurry of shots in the quarter number 3. This dude filled it up. 37 points total. 8 3-pointers in the game, 18 of those all coming in this one stanza as Mount Vernon started to come back. But you see the final seconds here, Minutemen with the ball. They would win at the Hive by 11 to remain undefeated in OCC action. Just last night, here's Grant Bentley and Northmore taking on Colonel Crawford. He hits the trifecta for the Golden Knights, but Jacob Maddie on the other end, helping the Eagles put together a 32-19 cushion at the break. Northmore and Jax Wenger would not go away. He had 20 points in this competition, but it's not enough. Braxton Baker, the area's second leading scorer, had a game-high 26 as Crawford would go on to win by a dozen. The Diaper Dandy, again, here's Fogel trying to lead Lexington to a perfect 8-0 start against Worcester last night, and Baden Forup had another monster performance, a double-double for him, 21 and 10 on the night for the senior. Here's Jackson Husty. He's been cashing in big checks lately. He was 3 for 3 from downtown in this one, but Fogel baseline peanut butter jelly time. Lex led by 12 at the break. Generals, though, they looked like they were left for dead. They would make it a game late. Big fourth quarter for them. They cut the deficit all the way down to a single score, turning some defense into some offense, but the Minutemen, just too many dudes as Fogel, 7 of 8 from the field. Here's his final one. They would go on to win it 69-66. They are alone atop the OCC with Mansfield Senior losing last night. So that's all you need to know from the holiday week that was right here on the OH Report in the Rewind, but keep it here. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with more Joe Show, starring that guy over there, Joe Balogh.
Welcome back to the Joe Show. Yesterday I spent some time with one of the top basketball recruits in Richland County, who's having a great season for the MOAC leading Shelby Whippets. Here's a look at my trip around the arena with junior guard Alex Bruskotter. Hi, we're here with Around the Arena with Alex Bruskotter, who's plays for the Shelby Whippets. They're currently 8-1 on an 8-game winning streak, lead the MOAC. So we're just going to try to get to know Alex a little bit better. So Alex, one of the things as far as playing the game of basketball, I know that there's people that influence you. So who's been like the biggest influence so far in your basketball career?
Yeah, I definitely have to say my dad. He's the one that introduced me to the game, and he's always pushed me to be better, and it's taught me a lot of life lessons, and he's also taught me a lot about basketball. And he's always encouraged me and made me work harder.
Well, I know one of the things, I got to coach against you when you were a freshman, and brings back bad memories of you hitting a little short jump shot here to beat us. But I know that one of the things for a basketball player is what they do when coaches aren't around. So one of the big things is for the summer, give me kind of just a typical day for you in the summer as far as what you do to improve on your basketball skills.
Yeah, so over the summer, well, I'll start with this. So I got to play on the C2K my freshman summer, and it really showed me how much harder I had to work to get to the level I want to be at. So a normal day, probably wake up around 8 or 9, kind of depending when I get into the gym, when they have volleyball practice. So probably try to get in the gym in the morning after volleyball. Then I go home, get something to eat, lift, do a vertical workout, and then see if I can play some pickup ball later in the day.
One of the things as a coach, I was always superstitious, so if I had something that, I ate on a certain day and we got into a winning streak, that was kind of the thing I did. So for you, do you have any kind of like pre-game food that you like, or that's your good luck charm?
Sometimes I'll eat a banana before the game or something, gives me a lot of energy. But a superstition that I have, when they play the national anthem, I always say a prayer, just wishing both teams safety and to give me the strength to play in the game.
The other thing is, a lot of players like to listen to music. So you have a particular artist or particular song you listen to before a game?
Usually before the game, I like to listen to rap in the locker room. It gets us all hyped up, and then I don't know. Sometimes I'll listen to some country earlier in the day, just to kind of soothing. But yeah.
So you're a junior. You played varsity basketball since you're a freshman. Who's the best player that you've played against so far in your career?
I think. Well, Shaver was good at Ontario, but my freshman year, I always went up against TJ every day in practice.
Yeah, that's a pretty good player.
He was pretty good. He really he pushed me a lot. But the best player I played against was probably that I can think of is George Mangus, my freshman year.
Favorite player, college or pro?
Probably Katie.
Best memory of your high school career so far? And don't say the shot you hit against Ontario.
No, I wasn't going to say that. But I'd have to say winning the district my freshman year. That was really cool to be a part of it and to have an impact on that.
So, a lot of times, being the player you are, intensity is, you're really intense, but who's a player that in your locker room can make you laugh?
I'd have to say probably Amarion. He's always in good spirits, and if you're a little worked up, he'll calm you down and he'll get you right.
Favorite thing to do to just relax?
Probably just chill out with my friends and watch college basketball and college football.
So if I would ask Coach to describe you in one word, What do you think that word would be from Coach?
I'm not sure, but I would say maybe fun, because I try to be fun to be around, and others like being around me and enjoy themselves around me.
So it's a new year. Any New Year's resolutions that you have for the 2023?
I wouldn't say too many New Year's resolutions. I don't think about that stuff too much, but just try to be more hardworking and focus on school a little more, I guess.
So we're here with Alex Bruskotter around the arena. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, good luck. Bruskotter's having a sensational season, helping the Whippets to victories in their last 8 games. The 6'7" shooting guard is also filling it up statistically this year, as you will see on this week's edition of Area Stat Leaders.
Well, thank you, Joe, and welcome into the Stat Leaders segment right here on the Joe Show, bringing you the second update of the Stat Leaders for boys and girls basketball around the area. And without further ado, we'll just dive right in, and we'll start with the girls this week, and we'll start in the rebounding category. Coming in at number 5 is Katie Wagner of Winford, averaging 9.5 rebounds per game. They're 4-4, 2-3 this season in the Northern 10 Conference. At number 4 is Emily Klopp, another Northern 10 player, 9.6 rebounds per game for this Mohawk Lady Warrior. At number 3, Ava Brown of the Lexington Minutemen, 9.73 rebounds per game. They are 3-8, 2-5 this year. At number 2 is Haley Snyder from the River Valley Lady Vikings, who are 6-3, 4-1, and looking to compete with the likes of Clear Fork and Shelby for an MOAC title. She is averaging 10.3 rebounds per game. And at number 1 is Corey Vermilia, 12.8 rebounds per game from the Loudonville Lady Redbirds, who are 9-2, 3-0 this year. Now we'll move on to the category of scoring, and coming in at number 5 is Kate Cecil, 13.4 points per game for the Lady Buckette. They're 10-1, 6-0, and let's take a closer look at Kate, show you just how she's been getting it done on the scoring side. Such a crafty guard, taking after her sister who graduated last season and covering a lot of that scoring load for Buckeye Central this year. At number 4 is Emily Klopp of the Mohawk Lady Warriors, 14.6 points per game for her. At number 3 is Ava Steele of Pleasant. They are 9-3, 4-2 in the MOAC. She's averaging just over 15 points per game. At number 2, Brooklyn Mosher of the Lady Vikings of River Valley, 17 points per game for her so far this year. And at number 1, yet again, Corey Vermilia, averaging 28.4 points per game, a comfortable cushion for the Lady Redbird. In our final category of assist, coming in at number 5 is Kirsten Bradley from Mansfield Senior, averaging 3.7 assists per game. Right above her, only 0.01 ahead, Kaya Wentz, 3.8 points per game for the Lady Tiger. At number 3, Jolie Hamilton, 4.2 assists per game for the Lady Warrior of Mohawk. At number 2, Demi Hip, 4.3 assists per game for the Lady Whippet of Shelby. They're 8-3, 5-1. And at number 1 is Riley Conser of Buckeye Central, 4.5 assists per game for the one-loss Buckeye Central Lady Buckettes. Now we'll switch sides and take a look at the stat leaders for boys hoops around the area. We'll start off with rebounds. Coming in at number 5, Isaac Mason, almost 9 rebounds per game for the Tiger from Seneca East. They're 7-2, 3-2 this season. At number 4, Alex Bruskotter, 9.5 rebounds per game for the junior. Shelby sitting atop the MOAC. At number 3, another conference frontrunner, this time in the OCC, Baden Forup, 9.86 rebounds per game for him. The Lexington Minutemen still remain unbeaten after a big win last night over Worcester. At number 2, Jacob Maddie, 11.2 rebounds per game for the Eagle of Colonel Crawford. They're 6-3, 4-1. And at number 1 is Sam McMillan, 12.4 rebounds per game for the Winford Royal. Now we'll move on to the category of scoring. And at 5, we have a tie. We actually have Alex Bruskotter and Cooper Kent, both averaging 18.2 points per game, both in the MOAC. Galleon 5-5, 2-3 this season. At number 4, Carson Myers, 18.6 points per game for River Valley. They're also battling for the MOAC title with Shelby. They're 6-3, 24-1. At number 3, AJ Hess, 20.2 points per game for Mohawk. At number 2, Braxton Baker, 22.1 points per game for Colonel Crawford. And let's take a look at just what Baker's been able to do this season, handling the bulk of the scoring for the Eagles, who a little bit more of a topsy-turvy year from last year, but a big win last night over Northmore has them trending in the right direction. And finally, at number 1, Trey Booker, 23.7 points per game for the Pleasant Spartans. They're 3-4, 2-3. Finally, we move on to assist. Coming in at number 5, Marquise Long of Harding, 4.3 assists per game for Mr. Long. At number 4, Braden Young of the Cary Blue Devils. They're 7-0, 5-0 in the Northern's end. He's averaging nearly 4.5 assists per game. At number 3, Isaac Mason, 4.9 for the Seneca East Tiger. And at number 1B, instead of 2, Alex Bruskotter, 5.3 assists per game for the Shelby Whippets. And also at 5.3, 1A, Kanan Allen, 5.3 assists for the Winford Royals, who again are 6-3, 3-2. So that wraps up your Stat Leaders update for this episode. Any coaches out there that think or know for a fact that they have a player that should be on this list, just send your cumulative season stats to the email listed on your screen by noon on Wednesdays, and we'll make sure we get them included in our list. But that's it. Thank you, and back to you, Joe.
Thank you, Hayden. Coming up after a short commercial break, you'll hear from Shelby head coach Natalie Lantz, who has her team on the top of the conference standings. We'll also chat with former Mansfield senior coach Effie James, who joins me after the break. Don't go anywhere. Back here on the Joe Show, we've got a special guest joining us today, former Mansfield senior player, Coach Effie James. Is here to talk about the state of area basketball. So, Coach, glad you could join us here on the show. It's been a while since we've seen each other. Brian had asked me about, if we had ever coached against each other, and no, we didn't. But we had a lot of open gyms in the summer out in Ontario where I think you made us a better basketball team, and hopefully we helped make you a better basketball team. So you've been out now for 10 years. I just retired 2 years ago. I guess I know that you still watch a lot of basketball and around basketball, but what's kind of the changes that you've seen over since the time you've gotten out, I guess major changes that you see as you look at the game of basketball? Wow, you said 10 years. I guess it has been 10 years. But, one of the biggest things is, a three-point shot has always, revolutionized the game. But now more than ever, you have to be able to shoot the three. And so many offenses now are geared around that.
And that's the one thing that really stands out to me, because you now see, at least even when I was coaching as a player, you see a fast break, and generally traditional fundamentals say we try to get a layup. Well, now traditional, even drill work, you have guys spreading out to the three, try to draw the defense and kick for a three-point shot. So that's probably the biggest thing that I've seen, how wide open offenses have become. We've always had open offenses, but now it seems like every offense is wide open, and they really talk about spacing and shooting that three-point shot.
You know, the one thing, I agree with that, and the one thing, though, in some ways, I think that philosophy's maybe hurt the game a little bit, because one, we have kids that want to take the three.
Right.
But I think as a coach, what I found out over the past, towards the end of my career, is you had to kind of, not that we kind of always did, but you really had to track, like in practice shooting drills, because you had to get kids to understand, that might be a really good shot for Effie to take, but that's not a good shot for Joe to take.
Absolutely.
And convincing kids of that sometimes was pretty difficult. I think the other thing that I've seen change in the game, when I first started coaching, you saw very little ball screens.
Right.
It was kind of like offensively, it was, I grew up, kind of being a Bob Knight fan, motion offense, pass, cut, and I see the game change to that almost every team involves not just a ball screen as a set play, but they involve ball screen continuity, and a lot of spacing on the floor. So I think defensively, you've got to really be good at just being able to defend one-on-one. Because when you put teams in rotation, that makes it much more difficult. Besides that three-point shot, anything else that you kind of have come across that you're like, man, this is a lot different than when I played or when I coached?
And when I look at, the development of players and how it really, it was evolving to, I think we all saw it evolving to a place where it'd be positionless basketball. But now every kid on the court just about can do multiple different things. The true post player no longer really exists. And that speaks to how the game has evolved, even at the high school level. True post players just don't exist. I watched the last few games I've watched, I do little things. I say, let's see how many people actually stop at the block and call for the ball on the block or in the block area. You could go half the game without seeing that now. So where it used to be such a pivotal part, even if you had a small team, you would use the block and have people throw it in. So that's a huge part too, where traditional post play does not exist. It's all about being able to put the ball on the floor and shoot the ball from the perimeter, which again puts defenses in a bind as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I guess I'm a little bit old school, though. I still like to to see that post guy touch it, because I think even at the high school level, though, is if you're able to have that guy, it can create some problems because teams really have to adjust. But I do really agree with you. The skill level of players, some of the things that they can do has really become phenomenal. And I think that's the other thing. I think maybe the game has changed too. We have the AAU element or the club basketball element in the spring and the summer. How do you think that's affected high school basketball?
I really think that is what we're seeing now. And I know there are now times where coaches don't call sets too much anymore, where you just come down and you play. Now, there's always been an element to that, but the AAU element is really about just open court playing, forcing the defense to respond to penetration or passing, and then reacting off of that, which is interesting to watch. But for a team, you've got to have such great continuity in your being able to play together as teammates, knowing and chemistry has to be great, because I go to games and I'm listening for, what's the play call? Well, nobody calls any plays anymore because it's all about moving the basketball, penetrating, and reacting from what the defense does. So AAU, that's AAU basketball. That is, nobody calls any plays because we don't practice enough to remember them. So that's the big thing. And also, we talked about the skill level before, and that's a huge thing too. I think big guys started to see, like, listen, I'm not touching the ball anymore. So people started to develop their ball handling and their outside shooting, because that's what AAU basketball became. And the more positionless you are, ultimately, the more recruitable you are, and the more of a weapon you are on the basketball court.
I mean, my one concern with the AAU or club basketball, though, is sometimes I feel like kids take that's going to make them better, right. which parts of it do make them better, because one, you get an opportunity, especially if you're playing at a higher AAU level, you get a chance to play against guys that you would not normally get to play against. But my fear is, I think you have being a coach, me being a coach, is where a kid can really develop is, what do they do on their own?
Right.
And I used to use a term a lot with our players is what are you doing when no one's watching?
Right.
Are you in that driveway? Are you getting in the gym and getting shots up? And I always told kids, we would, especially we got to the summer, June has become a busy month for basketball coaches. But when June ended, I always told our kids, this is your time now. If you don't play any fall sport, July, August, when you come back in September, we're going to know. Right. We're going to know what you did, and that's kind of the difference I see with that. I think AAU has a good part, but I also think that kids need to understand where you get better is your individual skill development.
Absolutely.
All right, here we go.
All right,
Ball's
so what
in.
Coach Lantz has set up here is a drill that starts out with 3 offensive players versus 2 defenders.
Go, Ronnie.
And then on the second pass, she's going to rotate the 3rd defender
All right,
in.
ball goes back up. You got to
So
get
she's
there.
working
That's the second
basically on
closeout. Third
baseline,
closeout.
cutting on
Okay.
baseline drives, contesting shooters, and then making sure they check out.
All right, ready?
So many times defensively, what you find is you're at a disadvantage. So
Ball's
she puts
in, ball's
that
in. Come on,
disadvantage
Lex.
here to
Hands
start.
up, good. Get there.
And then she's rotating in the help.
Good.
That would be
Come on,
coming
play it.
like in transition to give help to
Hands
get that
up.
3rd defender in the drill.
Good box. Good box. Hey, way to steal her undercut. Good job. So listen, just a couple things. Make sure this side is working really hard off the bat, right? Okay, we close out, we cut off the drive, and then you're closing out again. That 3rd time, we're really looking gassed on that. That's got to be a sprint. Good. Chop your feet, close out, hands up, okay? Not bad on the back side. We get pinned under a couple times here, but if you're starting to get pinned, if you're in good position, they're pushing, make sure you get low and push them back, okay? Good job, quick drink.
So one of the things is I get a chance to come out and watch practices. Coaching for so many years, it's one of the things you don't get to do. So it's always been interesting for me to kind of see how coaches do things. And we had a great opportunity to see you guys practice today. But one of the things I'm always interested in is, first of all, like, what's your coaching history like? Where did you kind of start, and where to get here at Shelby?
Honestly, I remember after I graduated through high school, Ellen Lawrence had me work at her camps, and I loved it. I loved working with the young kids. They're such sponges, and I think you can bring so much fun and excitement to the game, especially, they have role models, they want to look up to somebody, and if you can get them involved early, you can. And then when I was at OU, there was a couple players we were kind of in charge of running certain portions of our OU women's camp and over the summer, and we'd have a couple sessions of it, younger kids and older kids, and so took that to heart. I also worked with a world-renowned shot doctor. I worked with him for a couple years, traveled around a little bit. That was a lot of fun. Grove City had me come out to their college, run some of their camps, and then you know, after I graduated at OU, that was my dream, was to coach. I wasn't going to be a teacher, so I thought it would be a great way to stay involved with our youth and try and be a good, you know, female mentor. So Jody Corbus gave me that opportunity when she took over as head girls coach here. And I started out as freshman coach, and a couple years later I was JV coach. And I told Jody then, after 10 years, I was ready to step away. I wanted to be able to coach my boys in some youth sports and just kind of enjoy them. And at the end of that season, Jody said, I'm moving on. And had a talk with the superintendent. He came and talked to me, Tim Tarvin, and said, hey, why don't you think about taking over the varsity job? And this is when this gym was just being built, and they had just poured the concrete for it. And he said, just envision this, home stands, your home bench, and there you are out there coaching the girls. You know, isn't that exciting? And you know, so I went home and I talked to my husband and talked to my boys about it, and we prayed over it and just said, why would you not? You know, the boys love being in the gym, and so that's what I did. And this is year 11 at varsity. So
who has influenced you the most? Is there a coach that you kind of followed as far as style and what you'd like to put in here at Shelby?
Honestly, it's a mix. Ellen Lawrence, my high school coach, I mean, she was a huge role model and mentor for me. I really liked the way that she coached the game, and you know, really focused on team first over, you know, one player doing kind of everything. And sometimes you see that, but sometimes that's what a school has. You know, a really small school might have a really great player, and kind of that's their key on, everything's run around that. Whereas, I mean, we were very disciplined in our offense, we were very disciplined in our defense. Any player on a given night, you know, out of our probably top 6-7 kids could score 20 points, and it was nice. We just moved the ball well. We really worked hard on reads. So I would say that was a big influence for me. Different style game. I don't necessarily run anything that we ran back then. But, you know, another was Jody Corbus. Another was Dino Caparini, who was a Huron boys coach, and then he coached girls for a while. His daughter and I graduated. We played AAU together. So I just like the positivity. They'd get on you, but they'd also like tell you what you did wrong and how to fix it. And I also like that, you know, some of the coaches, one of my coaches that I absolutely loved at OU, Kim Jordan, she just brought so much energy into the gym every day. And it was like she would yell, but it was so motivating. Like, you know, she made me want to be better. And I think she made me a better offensive player, better defensive player, and just all around better teammate. And you know, I really respect her. So I think you take nuggets, golden nuggets, anywhere that you can get them. You don't necessarily need to reinvent the wheel, but you find what works, and you find what works well with to motivate your team and keep them positive and working together.
Well, it seems like you found a solution or a formula here that works really well for you. So we'd like to thank Natalie and the Whippets for letting us come out and watch practice today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. There you go. Good, Chuck. Good, Demi.
Last episode, I talked about the best all-time shooters I ever had a chance to coach or to coach against. Today on Coach B's Ballers, let's dive into some of the top boys basketball players in the greater Mansfield area for this season. So in taking a look at teams this year, I tried to take a look at different positions. So let's first of all start at the guard position. Max Dawson of the Willard Flashes, who are currently at 6-6, playing a brutal non-league schedule. However, the Flashes are 4-0 in the Sandusky Bay Conference Bay Division. Dawson currently averages just over 24 points a game, has had a season-high 40 and an early season loss to Currently, the Whippets are leading the MOAC, and Bruskotter's an all-around player, averaging almost 22 points a game, just under 10 rebounds per game, 5 assists per game, almost 2 steals, and almost 2 blocks per game. Bruskotter also an outstanding free throw shooter, shooting 81%, which is a key for the Shelby's recent victory over the Mansfield Tigers. He had 35 points in that game. Another combo player who leads his team is Braxton Baker, who plays for the Colonel Crawford Eagles. The Eagles are currently 7-3 and 4-1 in the Northern 10 Conference. Baker averages just over 22 points a game, almost 6 rebounds per game, and 2 assists. Baker set the Colonel Crawford scoring record with 45 points in just about 3 quarters early in the season versus Baden Forop, 6'6" senior, playing for the Lexington Minutemen. The Minutemen currently are undefeated, having a great season. Forop averages almost a double-double with just under 15 points per game, almost 10 rebounds per game, and is one of the key players for Lex in their balanced scoring attack. That's this week, Coach B's Ballers, and now let's wrap up today's show with some story time. Let's tune into story time with Coach B. So prior to the Christmas break in the first show, we talked a little bit about coaches and preparing for the Christmas holidays, and sometimes how a big win can make you really happy at Christmas, and a tough loss can make Christmas not so fun. So what do coaches do over the Christmas holiday? I think one of the things that coaches have tried to do is you try to really evaluate right after that Christmas holiday as to what the strengths of your team are, and then what weaknesses you really have to do, weaknesses that your team has, and what you have to do to improve on those weaknesses. So, for example, if you find that you're getting out-rebounded a lot, one of the things you're going to try to do is find ways that your team can become a better rebounding basketball team. The month of January really becomes a grind for coaches. Especially with what happened here right before Christmas, with the weather having an effect on canceling games. Teams have now had to try to squeeze those games in January. So you will have some teams that are already this first week of January are playing on Tuesday night, Friday night, and a Saturday night. So that is a difficult schedule, not only for players, but also for coaches to prepare. So what coaches try to do during this time is hopefully they had maybe a little bit of extra time that week between Christmas and New Year's, and that they've been able to maybe make some of those corrections. Because what's going to happen here in January is you're going to have to be conscious of how you're going to practice. And what I mean by how you're going to practice would be, number one, how long are you going to practice? How hard are you going to practice? Because what you have to do is gauge, number one, the health of your basketball team. So that's another issue that coaches are going to have to deal with in January, is how healthy are you, whether that be injuries or illness. So one of the things that we usually told all of our players at the start of the season and try to re-emphasize to them, especially at Christmas time, is there's going to be a point sometime where you're going to have to face some adversity, whether that is an injury, an illness, and that you as a player, if you don't think you're getting the playing time that you think you deserve, there's probably going to be some kind of opportunity. That opportunity might occur in practice, where a player's sick and can't come to practice, that you have an opportunity to step into that position and get more reps. That opportunity might be in a game when somebody gets in foul trouble. Because what's going to happen here in January is the depth of basketball teams are going to come out. The more depth that you have, the better basketball team that you're going to probably be. Another thing that coaches are going to look at during this time as you prepare and start play here in the new year is they're also going to start to prepare for the tournament. Now, as a casual fan, you might be thinking, well, Coach Balogh, you know, some teams haven't even played half of their games. But coaches are thinking that the draw is coming up. And for girls, that draw, I think, is the first Sunday in February. For boys, I believe it's the second Sunday in February. So with you having 14 to maybe 16 teams in your tournament draw, you're going to try to start taking a look at, number one, where do we think our team's going to fit in that draw? So once you kind of figure out, hey, I think this is where I'm going to fit, you try to start figuring out, well, what are teams that we can possibly match up with? The matchups could be teams that you already have played during the year or going to play here in January. But there also may be teams that are in that draw, that tournament draw, that you have not played or will not play during the season. So what you're going to start to do is, number one, you're going to take a look at their schedule. And if you get an opportunity to see them play in person, you may go try to see them play in person on a night that you're not playing. Number two, with the access to things like Huddle, you're probably going to start accumulating film, and you as a head coach, or you may assign your assistants that, hey, you've got these two teams, I'm going to take these two teams, another assistant's going to take another two teams, that you start preparing for that tournament draw. So January, as we mentioned, not only becomes a grind for players because one of the physical demand and mental demand to prepare for games, but it's also really a grind for coaches because not only are they thinking about the next game that they have, but many times they got to prepare for an additional game each week, and they also start thinking about the tournament. So that's this week's Story Time with Coach B.